How do you know if something is true?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the challenge with everything, isn't it? Is that we come into this world and all we have is sensory input initially, and our infant minds try to make sense of that sensory input. They begin to create a world. And then when we become old enough that we can learn from others, we begin to assimilate uh, their views and knowledge in the construction of our worldview. And then we begin to assimilate the whole cultural knowledge and structure. So uh, the views that we have are partly those that we've constructed ourselves. I mean, we do continue to take the information in from other people, from books, from teachers, and from cultural attitudes, but we also play an active role in creating our understanding of the world. I mean, basically, we all live in a world that we've created in our own minds, but there is input from something that's out there. And so we're always faced with the question of what is true and what is not. And basically, it's just common sense. Your idea of how things are, if you are confronted with instances that contradict that, then there's obviously something wrong with your idea of how things are and how things work, right? Yeah. And if you have a new idea, a new insight, if a new way of seeing things arises, it either works better in terms of accounting for the experiences that arise for you, or it doesn't. So truth reveals itself. Do you all remember going through adolescence? In childhood, you learned a whole lot of ways of seeing things and understanding things and ways of behaving in response to things. And they worked really well when you were 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then you reached a certain age where things weren't that way anymore. You know, and you realized that your childhood views and understanding were wrong. And it was terrible. It's what makes adolescence so terrible is that we have these ideas of the way things are, and they stop working. We have these ways of reacting. You know, when you're 8 years old and you're unhappy, you cry, and somebody else makes things right. When you're 16, it doesn't work that way, right? When you're 10, you might throw a temper tantrum and you get your way and you feel better. But, you know, when you're 20, you throw a temper tantrum and it's not going to work at all. It's going to have just the opposite effect. You know, we go through this whole process. We're doing this our whole lives. We're trying to modify our understanding of the world to fit reality. But the more superficial and the less attached we are to the particular aspects of our worldview, the more easily they change for us. The deeper and the more profound the change that they demand, the more resistant we are to them, and the harder it is for them to happen. Which is what makes the practice of meditation so important for having these profound insights that are actually changing our perception of things at such a fundamental level. So how do you know that an insight is true? Usually an insight is triggered by what I call an insight experience. And an insight experience is something that makes it obvious that your way of understanding things doesn't work. Like the examples that I was just talking about with this lady here. In meditation, in particular, you start to learn that a lot of things that you believed, you believe that there's a self, but there's really your mind is a composite of a lot of different things. You know, and the mind is not a single thing, but a collective of different mental processes. Trying to stay focused on the breath can feel like herding cats, right? Right? The less harmony among different parts of your mind, the more dissatisfaction and impatience you'll feel. The more impatience, the greater the disharmony, creating a feedback loop and frustration. And your reaction will be to want to get out of the situation that is creating all this conflict. What you want to do is you want to continue, you want to learn to accept. Yeah, see. So if you can let go of the frustration, if you can stop resisting, if you can surrender to the process, if you can say, okay, this is what's happening, but what's good about it? Well, what's good about it is there are those periods where my meditation feels good. There are those periods where my mind gets quiet. And it is really comfortable sitting here. It's really nice to let go of the hustle and bustle and hurry and franticness of the world, to give myself this period of time every day to just be with myself. So, formula for success in meditation. Relax. Just means let go of mental or physical tension as soon as you become aware of it. Look for the joy. Look for the positive. This is what she talked about as well. You're just right on with that. You know, the natural tendency is to dwell on the negative, to reinforce the negative. I mean, we do that all the time. But train yourself not to. Form the intention not to. Tell yourself in advance, when that happens to me, I'm going to find what's positive. Do that not just in meditation, do that in life, in every aspect of life. Observe means pay attention to what's happening without reacting or rejecting. This is what's going to allow the deep unconscious parts of your mind to begin to reprogram themselves. As long as you stay in a state of resistance and judgment and everything else, then the unconscious parts of your mind are going to try to make the world fit your worldview. But just observe and let go of that. And now the unconscious parts of your mind are going to start reprogramming the worldview to fit what's happening. The other thing is just no matter what it is, let it come. Don't try to stop it. Don't try to, do anything about it. Let it be there as long as it needs to be there. This even includes emotions of frustration and things like that. You can refocus your attention on some positive aspect of your practice, but that feeling of frustration stays there in the background. That's all right. Let it be there as long as it needs to be there. And then, no matter what it is, let it go. Don't try to hold on to the positive. Don't try to hold on to anything. Let everything come, let it be, let it go. Do it from a state of relaxed non-resistance. Be as much as you can the non-grasping, non-judgmental observer. It's just like, okay, so reality is happening in front of my mental eyes. And so let me just accept it for what it is and let the understanding develop. That's not relevant to what we're talking about. Now, another source of when you start to have insights, first of all, there's two kinds of insights. Mundane insights and supra, spelled S-U-P-R-A, mundane insights, which means, mundane means worldly, and supra means beyond, outside of the world. The mundane view is the one that I encapsulate and summarize by saying, I believe I am a separate self in a world of self-existent objects. And I crave happiness, and I have, I crave to be free from suffering. And so therefore, I am busy trying to figure out how to manipulate this world to make myself happy and to avoid unhappiness. And that's the delusion that we live in, you know. And what we're trying to do is to let go of that delusion, drop that delusion. So you can look to sources of wisdom to evaluate the kinds of insights that you have. If you have an insight, a different way of seeing things, as far as a mundane insight goes, an example of a mundane insight might be that you realize that you always react to this kind of situation in this particular way, and it doesn't work. Why didn't I notice that this doesn't ever work? Well, I have, but I just keep on reacting the same way. But you have this insight that, oh, I've been doing this all this time because of these things in my past. And now that I recognize where it comes from, I can let go of it. And I don't have to keep reacting that way. And then if things work better, you know that was a valid insight. If things get even worse, you know it wasn't. Okay. As far as supramundane insights, if you have an insight, an understanding, an experience, a common experience that people have is that they'll suddenly slip into a mode of, wow, I feel really connected to everything. I feel a part of everything. Now that's an insight experience. And if it alters, if it permanently transforms the way you perceive your relationship to everything, if from that point on that you, it may come and go, it may be immature, but if consistently there is always some degree of that realization that there's a kind of oneness that I'm about everything that I'm a part of, and I'm really not separate the way I feel, then you know you refer to the wisdom of the Buddha or Ramana Maharshi or whoever is your teacher and source of wisdom, and you say, okay, that is a way of perceiving things that those who have achieved true wisdom have been trying to express, and now I'm experiencing it. You know it's the real thing. It's the real McCoy. And what you want to do, you see, you can have an insight experience, and you can have a taste of insight, but it kind of goes away, and it becomes a peak experience. And you keep remembering, "Why, I wish I could get back to that state," but it doesn't stay with you, right? And what you want when you have an insight experience like that, or any of the other kinds of insight experiences that you have, is you want to sustain that for as long as you can. So if we take, for example, the fairly common experience that people have of slipping into that mode of feeling connected and at one with everything. And then it passes, but you can remember it. And if you keep remembering it, and if you keep trying to see things that way as much as you can, after that event has occurred, then it starts to take hold. It starts to mature. It starts to become. It becomes a true insight. If you're fortunate enough to know or to be able to remember what it is that allowed you to slip into that alternative mode of perception, and can repeat it, so much the better. As a matter of fact, when it comes to like the ultimate insight is the insight that brings together all of these things and has as its core the realization that you there is no separate self, that you as a person have no separate self, that you are an interconnected part of everything, that you are a process, not a thing, that you are impermanent, that the idea of yourself is a useful fiction, but it's completely empty, so on and so forth. that happens, then that's stream entry or darsana marga, the path of seeing. That's the transition from being a worldling to being an awakened being. And that's what, when that kind of insight happens, the most important thing to do that you can do, which often isn't taught, is to repeat that experience as soon as possible and as often as possible, right? Until, to help it become consolidated so that it becomes the way that you see things. Now, in the early Buddhist tradition, which persists today largely in the form of Theravadin Buddhism, they call that first stage the 7 times returner. And that's because there's large parts of your mind that didn't get the message yet. And there's large parts of your mind that only got part of the message. And you will find yourself in situations where those are the parts of your mind that dominate, and you are no longer functioning from the place of that wisdom that you have acquired. And that's why it's called 7 times returner. 7 just means it's going to happen. It's not going to happen a huge number of times, but it's going to happen. And it's probably going to happen more than once. That's what 7 symbolizes, right? So we probably should take a break. Oh, look at all those questions. Eager. I can continue this indefinitely. How many people want to take a break? You're kind of outvoted, but we will take a break shortly, just because I know you need it and it's good for you, and feel free to step out for a moment if you need to. Okay, so where were the questions? They were all over the place. Okay.
I guess this is related to what you've been saying, which has been very helpful. But my question has to do with my experience for the last several months, which I'm feeling some sense of confusion there about. I have a very difficult time doing sitting meditation. So my preferred form of meditation is walking meditation. And I'm very fortunate to live in an area where there's a beautiful view, river, sky, everything. So when I walk, I see the sky, the clouds, the water. It's just amazing.
Yes.
What happens, however, is that as I walk, I focus on the sensation of walking. Then occasionally I would look up, and it would just be a feeling of awe and amazing and so grateful to be alive.
Yes.
But then, and I want to, and I feel this urge to kind of move my object of attention from the walking to the seeing. And yet there's a part of me, it's almost like an internal part that goes nudge, nudge, hello, back to walking. And and I'm a little confused about what would be best for me to do, because I do want to engage in, I guess, what Pema Chodron calls cheerfulness practice, to have those moments where I am glad to be alive, and yet if I go back and focus on the sensation of walking, it feels like I'm moving away from that. But another experience that comes up is that I find that if I try to move my object of attention to the seeing, it's so much easier for me to get lost in thoughts.
Yes.
And I completely lose the attention, the peripheral awareness, it's just the loss in thoughts, versus the walking sensation obviously helps me focus and pulls the peripheral awareness back. But what do you suggest as the sort of the optimal balancing of the...
Okay, well, first of all, for the benefit of everybody else, I'll point out that amongst the many benefits of walking meditation, if you can walk in a beautiful environment, you can generate a strong sense of joy and happiness and contentedness, which then you can go and sit down and have an extremely productive and powerful sitting meditation. I would suggest to you, you said you mostly do walking meditation. I would suggest to you that you use that walking meditation. I mean, it is helping you develop stable attention, and it is helping you develop strong peripheral awareness. But do some sitting practice. And you're mostly experiencing extrospective awareness, although you're introspectively aware of the state of joy and everything that it elicits. When you sit down and when you close your eyes, then you can develop a very strong state of introspective awareness. So use what the walking meditation has given you, and use it to move forward in the process. That state of joy in itself, as you described it, is giving you little tastes of what it would be like to be a person who actually had these deep insights. So let's do what we need to do to actually allow those insights to occur. That's one of the things that I would like to explain to you. Whether you practice or not, life is always presenting you with insight experiences. Everybody out there is having experiences which have the potential to lead to insight. And what they are is they are experiences where the view of reality, the delusion that they live in, is revealed not to be the way it really is. But they overlook it, they rationalize it away, oh, that's nice, and move on, go back to the problem at hand, things like that. What meditation and developing powerful mindfulness does for you is two things. One is you no longer gloss over and miss those insight experiences that arise. You recognize them, and you can allow yourself to be with them and let them sort of percolate down to the deep level that they need to, and not analyze them. Stay in a state of mindfulness. Keep your attention and your analytical faculties. Use them only to the degree that they complement the process of understanding and realization that comes to you. The second thing that developing powerful mindfulness through meditation does is it causes you to have much more powerful insight experiences. They usually occur during meditation, but the longer you've been meditating, the more likely they're going to happen when you're walking down the street or fixing dinner or something like that as well. Okay. So anyway, back to your situation. Yeah. Walking meditation, you've kind of taken walking meditation to the point now where take the gifts that it's given you and go back into the sitting practice and see what that has to offer.
Okay, I will try. Then, in terms of the urge to change my object of attention to seeing versus the motion of walking, I guess I'm hearing maybe your suggestion is to follow the internal nudge that says go back,
Yeah, as far as the walking goes,
yeah.
Certainly, if you can stop walking and just use your attention to explore objects, visual objects, but you say what's happening is that thoughts arise and you get caught by the thoughts, right? So you don't want that to happen, so don't do it. You may come to the point where you can explore your visual field without that happening, and that's good. What's happened? Well, it's really quite simple, is that you successfully trained yourself to focus your attention on the walking, sensations of walking, without getting caught by thoughts. You haven't trained yourself to experience the visual world without getting caught by thoughts. You could do that. That can happen. But here, you don't want to get caught up by the nice little things that happen along the way. You don't want to forget that there's an overall purpose to this. You want to awaken. You want to have insights. And so while it's really nice to stop and smell the roses along the way, you don't want to get caught up in that, because the roses die.
Yes, but I'd always thought that those experiences are, makes you happy.
They're giving you a taste of something that when you've achieved real insight, when you've awakened, and as those insights mature, they can become the place that you live from. They can become the place that you live from in the midst of difficult, emotionally traumatic situations. They can be the place that you live from when you're dealing with physical pain and illness or grief or things like that. That's much more valuable than, if you can only experience them when you do walking meditation under the right circumstances, right?